evening, everyone. I would like to call to order the February 1st, 2023 North St. Paul Arts and Culture Commission meeting. Exact time is 6:32, I think. All right, so Secretary Lang, if you could take the roll for us.
Sure. Tom Sonnek.
Here.
Carey Nadeau.
Here.
Sure. Amanda. Carey Nadeau. Can you hear
Here.
myself? Amanda Black.
Here.
Stacy Maher.
Here.
Amanda Black. Emily Haeg Nguyen.
Here.
Lisa Ritchie. Emily Haeg Nguyen. C. Yang.
Here.
Lisa Ritchie. Cecelia Goracki. C. Yang. Here. I have it muted there. Lisa Wong.
Here.
All right. Perfect. And myself, yes.
All right, wow, what a group. Look at this. This is pretty cool. We got everybody here. This is fantastic. All right, so I'm going to, moving on to item 3, to adopt the agenda. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at the agenda and what is included therein? If so, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as listed.
Tom, could we add maybe brief introductions since we have new people here tonight to that? Thank you.
Yeah, why don't we?
I don't care what order. You can make
Yeah,
a
why don't we
decision.
get it to, in item 7, we'll add introductions. And then it'll get us right into, we'll introduce Soren last and then he can start talking to us. Okay, so with the addition of some introductions in item 7, a motion to approve the agenda then as amended,
So moved.
moved by Stacy.
Second.
Amanda on that one.
All right, good job, Amanda.
All right, all those in favor of adopting the agenda as listed with the amended to add the introductions, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, agenda is adopted. Okay, approval of minutes. Get the chance to read through the minutes. If so, entertain a motion to approve the minutes as listed.
So moved.
Moved by Carey,
Seconded.
second by Amanda. Any discussion about the minutes? Anything that needs to be changed or amended? If not, all those in favor of approving the minutes as is, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Moving on to meeting open to the public. Nobody here? Moving on. No public hearings. Okay, so item 7, commission business action items and recommendations. The heart of the meeting. So let's start with some introductions. So I think we really should just kind of go around the horn here and introduce everybody. But not the least of which our very newest member, Cece. So we have our high school member, a non-voting commission member, who you're representing the North St. Paul High School, right? Yes. So Cece, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Introduce yourself.
My name is Cece. I'm a 10th grader at North High School. I just love to be a part of things, and I'm excited to be here.
Great.
Perfect.
Welcome.
Great essay, Cece, by the way. I loved it.
Yes.
Yeah, nice job.
I second that.
Well, and I hope that your experience here is a good one and that it doesn't completely turn you off from being involved in government. But will hopefully encourage you to be involved in public service for the rest of your life. It's a good thing to do. Okay, and so for your sake, Cece, we're going to go around and introduce everyone else too. And I think because Emily has rejoined us, we're going to make sure, because I think there are a couple people here. Emily probably hasn't met yet. So do we want to start with Lisa?
Sure. My name is Lisa Ritchie, and I am a North St. Paul resident. I have been a resident, oh my gosh, since we got married in 1991, so quite a while. My husband was born and raised here, so we've got some roots. I worked for the city of North St. Paul for a year and a half and recently took a new position, and now Sara has my old position, and I'm excited to be on the council on the commission because I had worked with this group previously in Sara's role, and thoroughly enjoy anything that's artistic. I have a background in interior design and graphic arts, many years before I took a normal job with normal working hours, but my passion really is anything creative.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm Carey. For my day job, I'm Director of Operations at Hennepin Healthcare Research Institute. Previous to that, I worked for the American Composers Forum, helping support composers. So it's great to come back and do some arts work for the city of North St. Paul. Kind of landed in North St. Paul on accident, but I'm loving it here. Do a lot of volunteering with the school district, Citizens for 622 in the high school. So thanks for having me.
I get to follow that.
Yeah, come on.
Hi, I'm Stacy. I've lived in North St. Paul for 6 years, and by day I work at the University of Minnesota. I have a 17-year-old junior at North that you might know. I won't tell you his name because this is public, but we'll talk later. I am involved on this commission because I'm interested in community involvement. I enjoy art, but have no actual training in art. But what's kind of fun about art is you don't necessarily need training in it to have opinions. So the group is a lot of fun. We're really excited to have a student rep and a student voice. And thank you for being here.
Thanks, Stacy. Cece, I'm Tom Sonnek, and one of the reasons we wanted to start this Arts and Culture Commission is because I've been around in a lot of different cities around the country, or in other places in the world even, and I see these towns where they have lots of public art and a lot of things going around culturally, lots of performances and sculptures and murals and things like that, and I say, why can't we have that? And the answer is, we can. It just requires people who are willing to do it. And so that's what this group is. It's a bunch of people who are willing to do it. So we're the people who are going to direct our energy to try and drum up the money and make the art happen and make North St. Paul a better place, make it more beautiful and filled with cultural expression, as we say. So I'll leave it at that.
Hi, Cece. My name is Lisa Wong. I am actually a city council member, but I'm the council liaison here. Part of my role here is to kind of bridge the gap between council and the Arts Commission and try to support each other as best as possible. But I'm really excited to hear about your perspective and what you bring to the table. I think this is a super fun group. I've never been a part of a government group like this before, and I think you'll have a lot of fun. So thanks for being here.
Hey, my name is C. Only one C out of the CC, but happy that we can share that. I've been part of North St. Paul for, 4 years now? 5? Can't count. Almost 5 years. Outside of this, I work for the state of Minnesota under the Department of Employment and Economic Development. And I've been part of this council since last April, I think. Yes, last April. And so I'm really excited for you to be here. I think you'll have a lot of fun and you'll get to experience a lot of things and be part of a lot of great projects. So can't wait to have you be part of everything.
I am Amanda. I am also a North St. Paul resident. I've been here for about 6 years. I'm an artist. I have my own business I run out of my home, and so I bring that perspective to the committee and commission, sorry. I just started in January, so I am also new here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Haeg. Nguyen. I have been a North St. Paul resident for just over 2 years now. In my day job, I work for the University of Minnesota Extension as a sustainability storyteller. So my experience and my professional experience and background is in communication and journalism. And yeah, I joined the commission last spring when C joined as well. And it's been a really great way to contribute to our fun city and get involved with great events. So it's nice to meet you.
Sara, can we get you in the mix here too?
Absolutely. So I'm Sara. I'm actually an admin for the community development program downstairs. I started here in September, about the time Lisa left. but I'm also a North St. Paul resident, so I'm really excited to also be a part of a commission and hopefully positive things here in the city.
Great. Well, welcome everyone, and I'm just thrilled to see just the full table up here. This is really cool. Glad everyone is here. So now it's time. We're going to have our city attorney introduce himself, and he's going to talk to us about some training, open meeting law stuff. Soren? Whatever you're comfortable with. I think for video, you probably need to be there.
I was just thinking for the microphone. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Soren Mattick. I'm the North St. Paul City Attorney. I'm with the law firm of Campbell Knutson. I've worked with North St. Paul since about 2015. So usually I only attend city council meetings, once in a while planning commission meeting. But as North St. Paul's kind of organized these committees, we thought it'd be a good time to come in and speak to you and just talk to you about sort of some of the ground rules. Some of the ground rules as it relates to government are not intuitive, and there are some potential pitfalls that we just need to be clear about. One of the hard things is when you have people volunteering their time and doing good things for the community, we don't want to bog it down with some of the other things that government does have to follow. So I'd like to talk to you about those tonight. As an aside, I was talking to my daughter today, who is a junior at St. Ben's and an art major, and she said, well, so what in the world is an art commission? She, as a junior approaching graduation, is consistently asked, what's your major? Art. Well, what are you going to do with that? So she was happy to hear that there's still support for art. So that was.
My parents say it's okay.
Yeah. We had no choice. If you're the parent of an artist, you know that there is no other box to shove them in. It just simply does not work. So with that, I have not graduated to a technology age. I still do things by paper. To me, it's easier to find and scratch some notes on if you'd like. So you'll see that there are 5 or 6 things that we'll talk about tonight. We're going to spend the most time on the first 2. Tom, from a meeting management standpoint, how long do I get?
Oh, as much time as you need.
Okay, all right. I'll try and buzz through it in a half an hour, but it might take just a little bit longer. And you'll notice that in here at times you will see a reference to a city council. I did not update these materials for each of the commissions as it relates to that, although the law applies equally to you as it does to a city council. So if you see council, just insert commission. So there is a law called the Open Meeting Law, which dictates to local entities, which basically says, look, we like what you're doing, but we want the public to at least be able to see what you're doing, and so your business needs to occur here. We cannot prevent people from entering. We have to post our meetings and make the public aware of it so that they can watch the process. The open meeting law does not guarantee people the right to participate. So when you have items, if someone raises their hand, you can choose to allow them to participate, but it is not mandatory. I think sort of in the spirit of a public process, a lot of people, the chair or the group, do decide to let them participate, but you are not required to. But attendance is mandatory, and so they need to be in a space like this where they can see you and watch the deliberation occur. With technology, what we are seeing is more and more, I will say, slight potential violations of the open meeting law. The idea is the public should be able to watch you take on an issue, discuss it, and deliberate it openly where all deliberative processes are there for the public to witness. And these are what get us in trouble. So if you at the dais are texting amongst each other, or, hey, what do you think about that? What'd you see about that? That conversation is no longer occurring in the eye of the public. And so I would really encourage you, I know as we get paperless and we have our electronics, try and not text and or email each other. It can create a problem on the open meeting law, even when we're at the dais and here in the public's purview because they can't see it. Outside of a meeting, you have a body of 3. Lisa, are you voting on this? Are you one of the members? Okay, so your body of 7. My math is right. What we also have to be careful about are sending emails or texting outside of this forum and trying to create sort of a consensus on an item. So again, keeping in mind that what the law wants is it wants you here deliberating, talking about items in the public. If you then take business items out and start emailing to each other, hey, I like that idea. Hey, I'll check with C on that one. Well, what does Stacy think? You are creating and formulating a consensus outside of this meeting, and that is where you can have an open meeting law violation. One of the pushbacks I usually get on all of this is, hey, how do you ever get any work done? When I'm at the office, we're constantly doing emails, idea exchange, formulating opinions. It's so much easier when we're all on the same page when we walk in. And to that, I simply say, I get it, but that isn't what the open meeting law affords. And something, we'll cover this on the data practice, that is any kind of communication, whether it's via email, whether it's via text messages, some other form of social media that I don't understand. Just, you cannot gain consensus on that. The open meeting law does have an exception for some social media. If there is a general posting going on Facebook or what have you, and more than a quorum posts on it, as long as you aren't using that to communicate with each other, but if you just, hey, I really like this idea, that is okay. But don't start setting up social media platforms as an end run to this and communicate with each other. Any questions on that to begin with? These meetings are posted. We regularly post them. The time is put out there. Sarah, I don't know if that's you or Jenny who takes care of the postings for this commission. I do. You do? So all of the technical aspects of that are done and set up. We do have to take minutes as part of an open meeting. That's why you adopt your minutes. That's not just a formality. It is required by the law. That kind of covers A and B and part of C. If you look at C, this is what would be considered a regularly scheduled meeting. So if you look at your agenda and you say, hey, there's things I'd like to add to it, you certainly can. If there's things you want to take off of it, you can certainly do that too. There is an item called special meetings. Once in a while, something might be time sensitive or you cancel a regular meeting and you still want to meet. You can do that. It takes 3 days notice. It actually means 4 though. You don't count the day you post the notice. So if you posted it on a Tuesday, then Wednesday would be day 1, Thursday, Friday. You could meet on Friday. And when you have a special meeting, the only thing that's somewhat unique to that is, unlike here where you could change and adjust the agenda, a special meeting you are locked into whatever agenda you have before you at that time. You can't add to it. The idea being it's not a regularly scheduled meeting. People were on short notice. You got to stick to what you're meeting about and what caused the special meeting. There is a provision in there for emergency meetings. Candidly, until the pandemic happened, there was never really a fact situation that to me warranted an emergency meeting. And given the call of this commission, it would be hard to come up with facts that would justify an emergency meeting. When the law was written, it was in response to, hey, the tornado came through town, the council has to meet. That's what we're talking about, not, oh, shoot, this feels very important, we forgot to plan for it. That isn't an emergency, that's just poor planning. Closed meetings, again, that is not something that, in my opinion, you guys will ever have to review or worry about, but it is an option, and sometimes it's just good to know about that. Penalties. There are penalties under the open meeting law if you violate it. You can be fined for it. If you have a number of violations, you can ultimately be kicked off. And if people are forced to challenge it, they can recoup their attorney's fees. One thing not covered in here, probably, well, not at all, so I was going to say not in the detail I wish it were, but is that there's always a question about committees. Hey, we want to form a committee. And what IPAD, which is a state agency that covers data practice and open meeting law issues, has said is that even committees, standing committees, so if you intentionally create a committee to meet on something, is subject to the open meeting law. And so a lot of, well, but wait, that cuts against. We just want to meet, we want to discuss things, we want to bring back recommendations. Keep in mind that even a lot of the committees you form, even if it's less than a quorum, may be subject to the open meeting law. So what I've encouraged folks to do is what IPAD created a distinction on is a standing committee versus an ad hoc. If you have just an issue that may be coming up, it's going to come up a couple times, and you form a committee to just address that, as long as it isn't a quorum, I do think we have an argument that as an ad hoc committee, so it's not standing year-round with specified meetings, but it's going to meet a couple times. I do think you can do that, but we need to be careful about how often we exercise it. It's more of an exception than a norm or a standard operation.
Question about that, Soren.
Yep.
So, as you know, most of the work that this commission is going to do is going to be discrete project work.
Yep.
These won't be things that will typically be routine annual things that where we have to hold regular meetings on an annual basis. However, we have some projects that are that require less planning, project effort, and projects that require a lot more. Yep. What we have done for right now is set this up in such a way so that we have, I'll call them ad hoc groups that work on these things. And how many times they will meet, it depends on the size of the project, right? But in order to make progress and help get these things done in between these monthly meetings, those groups would meet, and they are no larger than 3 people, less than a quorum from this commission. Do you see us running any risk with this approach?
No, well, yes and no. No, I don't, not practically speaking. I mean, this in itself is a committee, it's not the city council.
Right.
You guys aren't, I mean, you have recommendations on spending and things of that nature, but, you know, the decision-making you have, not to downplay the importance, but that's part of the analysis on whether it constitutes a meeting is
Right.
what actually can you accomplish? You're not gonna come out of some ad hoc committee and buy a fire truck.
Right.
You're gonna come up with a recommendation for this body, which is then gonna take approval for somebody else also. So I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
If you were to start doing things like at the beginning of the year saying, we want to have a, paintbrush committee that meets once a month, every month, I would start to have concerns. That's no longer really an ad hoc committee to address an issue. That's a standing committee. But if you, through the course of a meeting, say, look, this is something we need to address. We don't always have time at our meetings here. Let's appoint 3 people. You guys go out, do your thing, come back with a recommendation. I think you're fine.
Because to be clear, I mean, some of these projects are going to take months
Yeah.
to accomplish.
Yep, I still don't have a problem with it.
I say it's not going to be something it's open-ended.
Right, yep, no.
Okay.
Then I don't have a problem with it.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, it candidly, some of that analysis from my perspective comes down to, I may have a much different conversation with the Planning Commission or the EDA.
Sure.
Some of it depends what it is we're working on and what that commission is tasked with. It is something that will be a yes on this, from my perspective.
Makes sense. Yep.
Okay. So that is what I was going to offer as it relates to the open meeting law. Do folks have other questions or things that didn't make sense about that? One thing I would just encourage you about, and we'll cover this on data practice, is just be careful with your communication on the electronics. There is absolutely no problem when Sara does an email blast. It's the same as if she was licking the envelope and mailing it to you, just a lot more convenient and easy. If you have questions, the reply all button should almost just be taken out of your computer. A reply to Sara to say, hey, I have a question on this, perfectly okay. Forwarding the email to Tom to say, Tom, what do you think about this? I was confused about that. You're still technically okay, but you have started the ball rolling down the hill of a potential problem, because when Tom takes that and forwards it to Lisa, hey, I got this from Stacy, what do you think? We are now only one person away, arguably, from violating the open meeting law. And you may have only sent it to one, but we don't know who they send it to. I would just encourage you to really limit your email, texting, chatter amongst yourself. The idea is the business is supposed to occur here. So one of the things, if you have the latest and greatest idea and you have materials and you've really worked on something, What I'd encourage you to do is take those materials, bundle them up in your email, send them to Sara, and if Sara email blasts them out and says, look, here's some materials on this topic, again, that is okay to do. But I would discourage you, use Sara as your point for information.
I think we've gotten pretty good at that, so.
I was gonna say, if we take it one step further and you use the blind carbon copy, then we're not able to reply.
Right, that's a good strategy.
Does the Freedom of Information Act protect, did that happen after open meeting law? Because the public can request information if we're part of this commission.
Yep.
And that could potentially be on our side because everything is available to the public through a process?
So two different things. So number 2 here will be data practices. So the lawyer in me says it's not the Freedom of Information Act, it's the Data Practice Act.
Okay.
Freedom of Information Act is what you would request at a federal level. Data practice is at state and local level. So the data practice doesn't shield you from an open meeting law. What it does is potentially turns into a sword and exposes you, because what I see happening is I want all emails amongst the Art Commission, and we have to produce them. And what it shows is, look, they've been pretty chatty amongst themselves violating the open meeting law. So that doesn't protect you. It doesn't, oh, look, here, see, you can see all the things we've been talking about. What it proves is you've been communicating outside of the confines of an open meeting law. Because keep in mind, open meeting law says you have to notice the time, place, take minutes. When you're having email conversations, you haven't done any of that. And the public can't see it contemporaneously. All right, I'm on page 3 for data practice. We've touched on this. When you are working on your art stuff, keep in mind, it's all public. So every time you send out an email, you should assume that it could end up on the top of the fold of the paper. That's the idea of anyone can request it. It doesn't matter why they request it. Their motives may be bad. It may be because they don't like what you're doing. It doesn't matter. They get it. And they get any and all of it. There's no, hey, we've already answered your questions twice. They continue to get it each week they ask for that data. And that includes emails, texts, any other papers, because the city is required to keep track of all of your communication or materials too, from a retention side of things. Now, what I don't know, Sarah, do the commissions have city emails?
No. No.
So you're using personal emails? At some point, we may want to think about trying to get you city emails, because it makes it a lot easier to round up data should we get a data practice request. Keep in mind that the Data Practice Act doesn't care what device you use to send that data. It cares about the data. So if you're sitting at work using your work email, sending out city emails, those emails are public. And so that can at times cause problems at your work, depending what you have for confidentiality purposes at your work. The fact that you send it from your personal iPhone doesn't matter. If you send out an email or a text that has the topic, if it's related to the Art Commission, it's a public email or text. Do you have a question on that?
No, I didn't have a question about that. A question about just data requests in general. And does the law offer anything by way of assistance to a city if, because as you said, some data requests can be for malintent, for whatever reason. And some people just can do it to muck up the system because it takes a lot of time and effort to gather all that data.
Oftentimes it is done for that reason.
Yeah, and is there anything that helps to protect a city in that regard? So there's no limit at all from any individual to request all the data they want all day long?
My initial response is they can request it all day long and in any amount. What recourse does a city have? We do get a reasonable amount of time to respond. You'll hear some people say, well, you have to respond within 10 days. Well, that's simply not true. That's if the data's on them, then you get 10 days. But if it's just your general business, then we get an opportunity to look at it. I've seen data practice requests. I want all emails going back 20 years, and here's how I want it. I often talk to folks, whether it's Sara or Jenny or whoever's going to be tasked with it, and say, look, talk to the responder. We have a right to reply in increments. We'll let them know year 20 will be here in a month, year 19 through 17. And so we get a reasonable amount of time to respond. But keep in mind, we have to produce the data at no cost to them if it's just for inspection. And we have to allow them the opportunity to inspect it. Now, if they want it in they have to pay for copies. If they want it electronically, we can charge for our time. But if they just want to inspect it, it's free and we have to produce it.
And that means inspect like at City Hall, like we
Yeah.
make the documents available and they can come here to look at and read those documents.
That's correct.
But they cannot take them with them.
No, we can charge them for that.
Yeah, right. If they want that, they can get copies, or if they want electronic copies, we can charge for that as well.
Correct.
And for the time involved.
Correct.
So the only time we could charge for time, though, is if we produce something electronic.
That's
and then
correct.
Take home. If they come here, we can't charge for time.
No, just to inspect is free. Yep. And so it is. It's one of those principles, going back to the open meeting law. Everything's out there. Everything's open. It's government. You do sit here in a governmental capacity. So the idea, it should be open to the public. Very few things that you touch, I can't really think of one right now, would qualify under the exception on the data practice. Sometimes city councils get involved in personnel issues or maybe property complaints, but candidly, the stuff you're going to be dealing with is, well, the general, you start with it's presumed public, and there aren't many exceptions that you guys are going to fall under, candidly. And so it's just important to remember what device you use is immaterial, and how it's communicated is immaterial. Text, email, whatever, it's all subject to the Data Practice Act. Any questions on that? Okay. Conflicts of interest. I can't imagine this is going to be too big of a deal for you. The most clearly one for conflicts of interest are if you're on this commission and you decide you want to do business with someone, if you're doing business with yourself, you have a conflict of interest. So I don't know, Amanda, if they're going to engage you in your artistry stuff, but if they do, we should talk about how that works or if it should work at all. So the law really doesn't want self-dealing. It presumes that when you get elected or when you're appointed to a council, it's for the gain of the community, not for yourself. And so I would encourage you to stay away from conflicts of interest. Those are questions I will field oftentimes at a city council level. Hey, my cousin is coming or they're doing this. Let me know about that. Again, I don't see this as something that's going to be a big deal for you guys, but it is something that's important. It is one of those core things. We want to be able to trust government actions and know there isn't self-dealing. So I would encourage you to play on the up and up.
If it's a volunteer thing, is that,
Do you have an example?
like, we have a commission member who's leading a paint night that accepts a fee to attend, but as the leader, they're not taking a fee to lead the class?
So they don't.
Volunteering.
Yeah, they're not getting paid.
Correct.
Yeah, there's no conflict there.
So if Amanda wanted to volunteer her art services,
Yeah,
she could, but,
I don't have a problem with that.
okay,
Yep.
that's good to know.
Yep.
Thank you.
And again, it would be a contracted service with the city. If you, for example, if you guys start hosting events where people can come in and say, purchase art, local artists or something like that, I wouldn't have a problem if you had a stand there. I don't think your participation here should preclude you from being able to sell your art. It's just if you started selling art to the city, or if everyone said here, hey, you know what we really need to do? We need to buy all of Amanda's art. That could be problematic.
So she could have her own artist booth at the Fall Frolic.
Yes.
But probably not likely that we would want to select her as a paid artist for a mural.
That's correct. That's exactly correct.
I have a question on that. So if I were to lead the paint night and I do have an LLC, is there any liability that I need to be concerned about?
You have how does the LLC come
It's
into
a
it?
Ritchie Design LLC.
So you're leading a paint night, and are you doing in your capacity on the LLC, or are you there as part of the commission?
As part of the commission.
So I don't know how your LLC would come into play on that. If you're just there because you guys have decided that someone from the commission should be there, you're just there leading it, I assume. No, I don't see any problems there.
Okay.
If the leading these, activities is somehow reimbursed beyond, I don't know the rules what you guys have in terms of per diems and things like that. That's not a conflict. But if being a leader at these things that you guys set up is a paid gig, that is something we need to look at.
Okay.
Questions on that? Okay. Gift law, I'm on page 5. Again, there's always a question of how far the gift law goes down. It's crystal clear that if you're a city council member, candidly on the planning commission or EDA, that you're subject to the gift law. For folks on other commissions, I've encouraged you to at least think about it. Local official, you'll see, does mean an elected or appointed official. It's hard to suggest that you folks haven't been appointed. What constitutes an interested person? The example I would give is, and this is usually where I have people flopping in their chairs who are in the sales industry saying, what do you mean? It's the whole wine and dine, let me take you out for lunch, let me introduce you to my product, I'd like to do this, hey, would you like to go golfing? I've got tickets for the game, I'd like to take you there, tell you about myself, and by the way, wouldn't you like to do business with us? That's absolutely fine, and what everyone does in the private sector, it is not how public sector works. And so if you guys are talking to artists or if you're talking to folks to do some work on behalf of the city, best thing for you to do is meet in City Hall and drink water from the tap. It shouldn't be at a restaurant where they're picking it up, buying you a beer. I get it, but not as a public official. It's just not how it works. You run into gift law issues. The idea is that wining and dining bought them entry to the service for the city, and now they're getting paid with tax dollars. So stay away from it. No, it does not mean you can't get gifts from your friends and family on holidays or however you choose to do that, but it does mean when you're dealing with contractors or even potential artists, hey, I'd like to thank you for this, here's a painting, or however that would work. That is a potential violation of the gift law.
The lesson here, Cece, is that it's much more fun to work in the private sector.
That's right.
Think about that when you're...
When we talk about public service, we mean it, yeah.
Think about that as you're selecting your own college major.
Seriously. Page 6, role of the city manager. I leave this in here just to remind folks, North St. Paul is a city manager form of government. To the extent you talk to some of your peers in other cities, hey, they're doing this, or they were told they can't do that. In Minnesota, not all cities are the same. Some cities have city administrators. Some cities have a manager with a charter form of government. We have a manager form of government, which means Brian, who's the current city manager, does make a lot of spending decisions and personnel issues decisions. He's the one who allocates work. So, depending on this group's relationship with Sara or how those work delegations go, ultimately Brian does have the right to step in and say, look, Sara, this is how much time you get for arts, this is how much time you get for over here. That is something he ultimately gets to decide. As it relates to spending, one thing to keep in mind, this isn't necessarily, you are subject to the open meeting law, but you're not actually an entity that exists. You are a committee of the city. And so when we do things like contracts, you'll see that it's in the name of the city. Any donations or spending are money that comes into the city. To the extent you need to spend, it's coming out of the city. So it does work with talking with Sara and then communicating with Brian and finance. But you are not an independent arm of the city. You exist as a committee.
With that in mind, how can we actually obtain donations or do fundraising to help support us internally?
So what I see happen most of the time, there's two routes. The most common for a committee like this, in my opinion, is You guys go out, talk to folks, they say, look, I like what you're doing, I'd like to give you some money. They come in with a $100 check, whatever it is, and they donate it to the city. The city is required to accept that donation. That actually has to come to city council and be approved. Now, what a city has to do, once they accept it, is honor the intent, assuming it's a lawful intent. But if someone comes in and says, I'd like to donate $100 to the Art Commission to be used for murals, city council says, yeah, that makes sense to us. They take that $100 in, yes, it's in however Dan sets up his accounts, and it's money that will be designated towards you, and that $100 does need to now be used for murals. So that's how I see it done most of the time. Other times, if you really get active in the fundraising arm, I've seen a friend of the North St. Paul Arts 501c3 formed, and at that point, they can do pretty much what they want in terms of going out, getting the solicitations, people who make the donations get the tax benefit to that, and quarterly, every 6 months, in comes the big check to do a little publicity. Hey, we're donating to the city, and we'd like to see it on behalf of murals. So those are the two most common ways that I see it done. That makes sense. Okay. All right, we're cooking along. I don't want to take up all your time. The final piece in here is Robert's Rules of Order. I really hope that you guys don't have to read this or rely on this. Robert's Rules of Order is arguably the worst form of rules to use for local government, yet most use it. It's really meant for a legislative body with a lot of people. My feeling on Robert's Rules or any other rule of order is you do need to do, it's meant to create order. So you should create, if you want to do something, make a motion, second, vote, majority prevails. Past that, I would hope we don't have to get into other motions like reconsideration or secondary motions. A strict parliamentarian would say, make a motion, have a second, and then debate it and talk about it. I would strongly encourage you to ignore that and instead talk about it and come up with a concise idea of what you want to do so that when you make the motion, Sara, taking notes, can say it's crystal clear what that motion was and vote on it. That, to me, makes the most sense for this kind of body. So other than that, there are other things in there about Robert's Rules, but again, at a committee level, I would hope it stays informal. You just work to gain a consensus and vote on it. All right, we buzzed through those. Yes?
So revisiting the gift laws again, so if they were to donate, if it's not money, is it still something that we could accept? Like, say if it's like a whole bunch of canvases for like paint night or something?
Technically, those donations would need to be made to the city. The city would accept those canvases and simply usher them on to you. You as an entity don't exist, have the ability to accept them. And those are donations to the city.
So then if someone were to do so, we just refer to Sara and she can kind of administrate through that. Okay.
And if I don't know why you would, but Lisa, the expert on council, you'll see once in a while we have donations on the consent agenda accepting certain things. So that is a part of what the council does is their business. Tom, I don't know if we had our act together when you were there and actually accepted donations or not, but we've gotten better.
We did.
Did we?
Yeah.
Good. Yep. So there's no gift law issue if someone wants to donate something to the city. That actually, again, is why the law is written in such a way that the city has to accept it. The idea is this is transparent. If someone's going to donate something, we want the world to know about it.
What about our Amazon?
Oh, yeah, do we still have that up?
It's been discontinued anyways, the program's done.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
I think February.
Oh, really?
Oh, I think that's Smile, yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Amanda?
All right, this goes into the communication realm, but if I use my artist platforms to gain insight, advice, or invite my fellow artists to events, is there some
There's no problem with that.
Okay.
The emailing and things I'm cautioning about are amongst this group. You can email the rest of the world as much as you want.
And I can tell them all about everything we do and.
I hope you do.
And subcommittees can email with each other, as long as it just stays within the ad hoc subcommittee.
Yeah, if 2 or 3 of you form your ad hoc subcommittee, and then you start emailing saying, here's what the 3 of us have decided, Tom, that's the problem.
Right, and that's why part of this comes into play, so that subcommittees, when you're doing your work between the meetings, you keep it between yourselves, and then when we come to each meeting, we're gonna check in with each other by going through our list of projects.
And maybe we'll rename these subcommittees ad hoc subcommittees with the project name, because projects on our group have end dates. They're not, like Tom mentioned, annually repeating.
Yeah.
It's this project, and then this project, and then this and they all require a different lift.
I don't know if you need to name them ad hoc, we just need to make it clear that they are an ad hoc. To the extent the minutes can reflect that, that's helpful.
Just want to be very clear.
Yep. So that's what I planned on going over tonight. Those are sort of the ground rules. The things that are most important are the open meeting law. I mean, it's all important, but the open meeting law and the Data Practice Act, in my opinion, are the things you deal with mostly when you're here. Or when you're away, the Data Practice Act and the open meeting law issues are where people trip up.
Oh, I had a question for you, Soren, because I know this has come up for us last year as well, when we were a 5-member group and we might have been down a person or two, so to have a quorum, it was like everybody needed to show, or we'd have to cancel the meeting. You know, during COVID, having that ability for commissioners or council members to attend a meeting via Zoom could be awful convenient. It
is.
Do you think the state will contemplate having that built into the law in the future given where we're at with technology?
Yep. It is being debated right now. They are talking about going back to something allowing it to happen 3 times a year. That bill is still being worked and massaged. Tom, you can still do some remote meetings, but it has to have been in the note. So if you're stuck in traffic and you're like, look, can I just phone in remotely? The answer is largely no.
Right.
But if, at the council level, I can remember when Candy took a vacation to, I can't remember if it was Alabama or Florida, we noticed it. We said, here's where she's gonna be. She'll be in a public location, which to me is always a bit of a farce. We're noticing people in North St. Paul that someone's in a public location in a different state, but that's what it's required.
Yep.
So you can still do it that way, but you just have to be on your game and know ahead of time.
Yeah,
Last minute just doesn't work.
I did that myself once. I had to travel for work, and so called into a council meeting remotely. But why 3 times a year? What's the?
There was a debate. I don't understand it, given how the legislature works in terms of backdoor committees and all the things. But there was a concern that the remote meetings were being abused. We couldn't see everyone here. We didn't know who else was in the room, perhaps influencing them, things of that nature. To me, it's a bit absurd, but it's the law.
Yeah. Well, interesting to know there's some action being taken to move it a little bit. But
yeah, it would help a little bit. I think during the summer months when folks can kind of phone it in a little bit, it helps. I mean, one of the pitches made is, look, these are volunteer folks. They're already giving their time. Not everyone was appearing remotely, Zoom, Teams, whatever your platform is, but we've all become kind of accustomed to it.
Yeah.
And so, given the nature of what a lot of us do, isn't there a way to be more efficient with our time and accomplish the good work? So that's the debate.
Any other questions for Soren? Golden opportunity, we got him right now.
To clarify on that, if someone wanted to participate though, or wanted to join the meeting, but they can't participate.
Right. It's the vote.
remotely?
I think every city attorney is kicking this one around, like, how far do you let this go? If you're going to appear and we didn't notice it, it's crystal clear you can't vote. The concern I've always had is if you can't vote because you're not a member and standing for that meeting, you know, do you get special privileges beyond the public? If you don't normally allow the public to participate openly, should you be able to when you're remotely? I think a lot of people have started to get comfortable with saying, yeah, you can participate, you just can't vote at the end. Hasn't been challenged, so, okay, I wouldn't make a habit of it. But
We can participate virtually now because we're live streaming this on YouTube.
are you, are you calling
I
on
can-
people and acting?
So, yeah, so technically, we have, our meeting is open to the public. It's like our item 3 or 5, and that's the time where the public would be allowed to speak. Otherwise, we don't have to allow the public to speak at any other time during the meeting. So,
That's the
but
idea.
we've just never really been presented with it either because we don't typically have
I
people.
guess if you think about it in terms of a city council, understand you're governed by the same laws. If they're talking about something, yes, the public can watch, but they don't get to participate and come up and join in the conversation. And so if you as a council member are remote and you have no privilege beyond that of a resident, should you be allowed to engage in the conversation? I think most people have lightened up and said yes.
So,
Practical matter.
yeah, if it gets to the point where we, you know, one of our goals was we'd hope that we have more public participation live at our meetings. If it got to the point where we really had members from the public here and we were engaging in a conversation about one of our projects and we had members from the public who kept raising their hands and they wanted to be involved in the conversation, I would make the decision whether to allow them to participate or not. And some, you know, I think by and large, we would want to welcome, you know, some commentary if somebody really had something that they wanted to add. But if it got to the point where it became disruptive, we would just not allow it.
Well, and you're a 7-member body, you know.
Right.
Depending how far you let that go, it becomes an 8, 9, 10, 12-member body.
Right. And a long meeting.
Yeah, exactly. Other questions?
Anything else?
If there are follow-up questions, please feel free to email Sara, and Sara, if you can collect emails. What I've done is sometimes there's, hey, I forgot to ask this or whatever. I give Sara that, and it's just made part of your next packet or however you choose to distribute that.
Well, Soren, thanks so much for your
Yeah.
time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Volunteering to share these meetings with your daughter and her
Oh.
friends because we are always, she could use it for a thesis
Yeah.
project. We've got our lovely art cart that we relaunched and it touches youth in the community through art projects.
I don't know, it might be a conflict of interest. I wanted to ask you, do you refer to that to your daughter too? So when you're working on your art stuff,
Your art stuff.
whatever that is,
You know,
It's hard. I don't know. She hasn't picked the medium yet, so whatever. Anyway, thank you.
thanks, Soren, really appreciate it. All right. Okay, let's move on. So, we're gonna try this for our first time, is to go through our improvement plan and get updates from our ad hoc subcommittees. Emphasis on ad hoc. So, if you haven't had a chance to read through the left-hand side, so I updated that, given the notes that we took from the last meeting, but you can do that at your leisure. So what I want to do is just go through the key initiatives, and then we'll take an update from each person. At some point, Sarah, I'll try and get better and be more prepared. I'd love to take notes right into the A3, but I think it's just too much for me right now with everything else going on. So, or maybe we could have someone else who gets into the A3 to take notes or something. But for now, I'll just take notes and update it as we go. Okay, so let's start with our first project Snowy. So Stacy, C, and Amanda, any updates on this one?
I think we have a few.
Okay.
No?
See, do you want to go?
Yeah.
Sure. So our ad hoc group met earlier last Thursday, and we kind of talked through tasks and next steps. And so we did get a updated Project Snowy flyer. It needs a finalization, and it'll be ready for distribution. Which, you know, we'll send to Sara so that everybody can also have a look at the flyer as well. The purchase agreement, we did some noodling and some word crafting, and thank you, Stacy, for doing a lot of that. And we did get it back to Sara and team. And so that is, there's still some things that are, that need clarification, and I believe that requires some kind of
Review, doesn't it? Like,
some kind of review, yeah, council review or,
But we got did Soren review that already?
He reviewed it. Brandy, the community development director, reviewed it. And so I believe I sent it back out after that. It does have notes on it, some questions that need to be answered by either the subcommittee or the group as a whole. Once those are answered, we can send them back to legal, back to Soren, and then it can go in front of city council.
excellent, yes.
So do we need to have the full commission then review these notes, or is the subcommittee okay to review changes? Or do you feel like, the subcommittee, do you feel like this is something that you would like to get the full approval from the commission before you move forward with that?
There's a little bit of more legalese with that as far as moving forward, because we need to wait for, I forget which.
So it is a part of it about kind of the zoning. I think they changed the name of it, but how the city code would refer to the zoning of it.
Okay.
I spoke with Brandy this morning about that. She has her final proposal going in front of council on Tuesday for that. It's going to be called a sidewalk encroachment.
Okay.
And then that will become a permit that the purchaser will need to pull. So there's going to be a fee associated with that.
Okay.
That's where we're going to have a little bit of a delay, is because that has to be established, put in a fee schedule, and then put in front of council again.
So we can't go forward with the purchase agreement until that is complete.
Nobody can officially sign the purchase agreement.
Right.
Yep.
We can work on everything, on other details, but we can't go forward with.
So the purchase agreement is going to say that if you want to have this on the sidewalk outside of your business, you will have to pull a permit for that. It's called what did you call, right-of-way encroachment?
Sidewalk encroachment.
Sidewalk encroachment. And so that will have to be an additional thing that each business would have to do on an annual basis, I assume?
Correct. And it's proposed $50 annually for that.
Is there any way around this?
Art exception?
Yeah, I just,
Does the encroachment only matter if they are putting it out on the sidewalk in front of their business? If they're putting it,
Correct.
if they have a grassy knoll area?
If it's going in a public right-of-way, then it applies. If they're putting it in their private-owned space, the only thing they need to do is make sure it's 3 feet away from the property line, so they don't need to pull a permit or anything like that. But if it's going on a public right-of-way, we would require the permit.
I would like for us to consider other options before we go forward with that. I would hate to move forward with potential buyers and say, and here's another hoop that you have to jump through. Not only do you have to spend $50, but you have to go and pull this permit each time so that you can have this thing in, it seems like, it seems like a hassle more than it's worth. So I'm just wondering if there are other even suggestions that we could offer to potential buyers who would be in that situation, or if there are any other potential solutions that we could talk about, whether with the planning commission or with the council.
I did ask Brandy about that too, because I thought the annual thing was a little rough. But she likened it to we have the baseball fields, we have signage out there. Every year, they gotta pay to have their signage out there. Whatever business pulled that. So she likened it to that. It would be the same thing. It's kind of just a renewal every year.
What I can say about the renewal process, they won't have to come down and renew it. It's an automated process. They'll probably get an email. They can make
Okay.
payment. So that part will be pretty simple. We could encourage them to put it somewhere not in a right-of-way to avoid that. But I think that law has always been.
Yeah, it's
So-
just being restructured a little bit.
Yeah, so I can't see that they would totally eliminate it or make an exception. They may, but it's just, I guess, just because it's always been that way doesn't mean that it has to be that way, but, and Brandy is much more knowledgeable about that than I am, but there's reasons for having that, and whether it's incurred costs for the contractors that maintain, because I know Public Works, I don't think our Public Works maintains the shoveling downtown in the winter. I think that's contracted out. So anyway, I think there's a lot behind it that we're not in the know of.
Could the commission, say, pay for these permits for the first 2-3 years and include that in their agreement?
I don't like that. Basically, then we're subsidizing the purchase of these things for private use. So I think it's interesting. I think there's something here. So there is a thing called an encroachment that you can get a permit for. That exists already. Does anybody ever do this now?
Not, yeah, I don't think there is a encroachment.
It wasn't an encroachment,
right of
no.
way.
It was something for a special event where they had some things out on the sidewalk and they had to have a
Yes, yep,
special
special event permit.
That's the only thing that I'm aware of.
Yep, so she wanted to update this for a number of reasons, but one was because of the snowy. And so
To
they didn't have
have
to
an
pull that.
encroachment rule involved in there.
Correct.
So if we're saying that it's reasonable to have this encroachment exception and have a permit pulled for it, then could every business downtown pull a permit and have an encroachment in the
Potentially.
public right-of-way?
However, it's all reviewed, so
Huh?
depending on how reasonable it is, but yes, potentially.
Okay, but potentially everyone could. So what we're also saying, though, is that it's reasonable to encroach in the public right-of-way, depending, obviously, each thing would be reviewed. If it's a massive encroachment, then probably not, because it blocks traffic.
Right.
So ergo, it seems to stand to reason that if it's okay to have it, it's okay to have it, so if it's okay to have it because then you followed the city's special encroachment thing and paid $50 a year, because even with that, the encroachment for the snowy, haven't we said from the get-go that this is really for the non-winter months? Because we wouldn't want to, haven't we talked about from the beginning that owners, that if they had them out front of their business, they would have to move them in the winter for the purpose of plowing?
Yeah, and that was also discussed with outdoor patio seating, which is the other part of this. But yeah, all of it would be, I think the language was that it would be dependent on the business to take care of
Right,
that before a certain time frame. So I think we were kind of discussing what that time frame may look like, but it's more likely June to November or mid-November. So there's still discussion.
So should that language be incorporated into the purchase agreement as well? So that
I don't think it would need to be, because that's a permit issue, and that's a city code issue that's beyond what this purchase is.
We
I
do
think,
need to make people aware of it.
I think there was a bullet point
Okay.
about,
Okay.
about them needing to, adhere to.
Yeah. And so the feedback in the document, if you are concerned about it, we could always answer the questions and review our answers to the questions at the next commission meeting. Because of the code stuff that's happening right now, we got word that it's probably going to be months before we'll have decisions to finalize this, and so we're gonna have to adjust the timeline.
Yeah, so I think I think probably the best thing we can do is, in the language in the purchase agreement, in any of these types of things, you have to keep it high level enough so you're not pinning anything down that may then end up being false later. So I think if we can keep it general enough, but I think if we're approaching businesses in the downtown area, just going in and being as open as possible about what it may mean for them if they were to choose to display it out front of their business. There may be some other location that they would want to display it anyway. I mean, part of the thing is we want these things to be visible. We want people to be able to go and see them, right? So that doesn't mean that it has to be outside their business on the sidewalk. It may even be better for the business if it is inside their business, because then it's getting people in the door. And that's okay. That's okay. But if there is this idea that somebody wants to have it placed out on the sidewalk, I think we just need to be open with them. And I think were you saying, Amanda, that there's some language in there that said something to the effect that you would have to meet all city code if you were to place it on a public right-of-way or anything like that?
Yeah, I said that.
Oh,
and
there's,
yes,
you said that, yeah.
There was, there was a bullet, but it wasn't specified because it was still being clarified.
Okay.
It was just placed.
So it essentially says that the buyer shall comply with all applicable state, federal, and local laws in the decoration and placement of the sculpture. It shall be sole responsibility of the buyer to obtain all necessary permits or approvals required for the final designated placement of the sculpture. We just have to be like
Yeah.
transparent about that. I don't think, and not say like, once it's yours, it can be there forever. Like that is over-promising
Right,
falsely. So
yeah.
I'm not too concerned.
I'm just
Okay.
speaking from, if I was the business,
Yeah.
I would want to know that up front, that I would need to move it every winter, because that would affect,
If you're the business, like on 7th Avenue.
yes,
That
Because-
chooses to place it in the right of way.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Because if you're, like,
All of those,
if you're Target or something, you can put it wherever you want. It's your property.
do we have Target? On Snowy?
Oh, no. Not yet, yeah, not yet.
I know we have a Target.
You do have a Target. Yeah.
A question for you, Tom, because I think, were you the one dealing with the manufacturer mostly?
Yes.
Is providing an updated cost of that. There was question from Soren and his attorneys on whether the $5,000, is that $4,000 for the sculpture and $1,000 for the stipend for the artist? Is that accurate? That was kind of a question.
That was what it was. Is it still accurate? I mean, I think we can, and I can just, most of you who are on this subcommittee have, you should have that Tivoli 2 information, but if you need it, I can forward to you. But you can reach out to them and refresh that quote if needed.
Okay,
And there might be a change in that, and that might be something we'll just have to consider.
okay.
In regards to the permit and the fee aspect of it, I'm thinking, would it be possible to kind of frame it in a way where it's like the total amount includes the permit as well, or kind of like is part of the package? Do you know what I mean?
For the
So
first year.
Yeah, perhaps, so it's a little bit easier to kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Would we have to run that past the permit people then for approval before the contract is fully executed? I don't know how the zoning people work in the city. I'm less familiar with that.
So once the ordinance is passed, then when people come for permits, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, but I believe the ordinance also has kind of a request to kind of map out where people are locating their statue or whatever it is. So I think in that process, I mean, that's when
Yeah, and
Right.
more or less they could sign this purchase agreement, but they wouldn't be able to place it until they had the permit fully pulled, approved, paid for.
But at least the
everything.
permit review so some permit review is done by staff, probably most, and then some it would have to go through, well, if it goes through planning commission and council, that's really if there's a variance or something, right? So it's not a complex process. They don't have to go to meetings for it and stuff like that.
And Brandy would probably be the one
Right.
doing that.
And it would be a common approach because it's the same statute.
Yes.
Just painted differently. But the approach would vary based on where they wanted to place it and the particulars about their specific business location and things like that.
Yep.
Right?
I'd entertain adding that to the purchase agreement and embedding that cost in
The first year?
for the first year and being explicit, like the purchase of this includes permitting, and then include the permitting form on the purchase
But
agreement.
then they are responsible for filling out those forms and submitting.
Can't they fill it all out and submit them with their signed copy of the purchase agreement?
It's an online.
Online, yep. So they would
Is
have,
the purchase agreement going to be online too then?
not necessarily. It could be, but not necessarily. You could have a physical copy. But the permits for sure are all online.
The permit is a form that they
Yep.
need to fill out, whereas a purchase agreement would be just an agreement or a document. But also, I don't know, would it be like $5,050?
Well, that's the thing too, because if it's gonna come out of the cost, where?
No, you'd have to add the $50 to the original purchase price, but if someone's gonna purchase this for $5,000, I don't see them saying no for $5,050. If there's a way we can link the two together more intuitively,
Absolutely. I will bring that back tomorrow too and see what.
cool.
I
final
also,
thoughts are.
yeah, but I also wonder, like if they haven't seen the statue or the final product, do they know where they would want to place it? Like would they be able to wait, or like how would that work as well? If they're like, no, I'm not ready to figure out where I want to put it, or
Would it be possible to suggest a few spots around the city that would be nice to have? We have one out by City Hall, but are there other public spaces in which, would be ideal for Snowy to be showcased?
Well,
And then people can kind of like auto-select if they want.
But, so like if they wanted to donate theirs to a certain public location? Because that's something we had talked about already anyway. So like if they wanted to purchase it and donate it to the city and have it, so I think that's one of the things we have to do is identify these public locations, because I think we're already gonna have a couple of these that are going to be donated to the city. I'm thinking 2 for sure. We have one sitting outside the front of the building right now. So identifying public locations as sort of permanent homes for some of these 2 would be good.
I think if there's suggestions that can be sent to me too, I can bring those
Perfect.
to the appropriate people.
Yeah, would the city council have to approve those? Would we want to partnership too with the city council to approve those donations? Not to hold this up any longer, but because the city council essentially has to accept the donation as part of this process. So if they're not on board with where they're gonna go ahead of time, potentially, I could see that complicating the acceptance of the donation process. And if we provide a map of where these could potentially go, and we can't deliver on that, I don't want that to happen either.
Do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's unlikely that we will kind of, have issues with it, as long as it follows within, planning and zoning. I mean, council doesn't really tend to have any issues with it. Yeah, so I can't really see it being like we were rejecting the donation. It just doesn't really happen because it's in the consent agenda.
But if, like, my problem is if they accept the donation and the donor has specific requests of placement based on information we provide, and the council's like, oh, I don't like that placement, like, I don't want
You're
to,
saying just get prior approval for the
the
placement.
the potential placement
placement.
spots of where they could go. I mean, is that too much? Is that too extra?
She wants to say yes.
You can say yes, it's a safe space.
I mean, I can see.
But it's being broadcast to thousands of people.
Yeah.
The live stream has 2 likes, 2.
I mean, I could see that as a courtesy, but also I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue. The most important thing, I think, is kind of making sure that whatever public spaces that are chosen are compatible with, you know, our public works and, you know, is it visible, is it safe? Again, it goes back to a lot of the zoning and planning side of things. So as long as it fits in that and within that ordinance.
So can this subgroup take it as an action item to identify potential public locations?
Yes.
I can think of like a dozen of them right now, the parks. Okay. So, any other updates from projects? This is really good discussion, and this is a big project that you're taking on, so I appreciate all the work that this group is doing. Anything else you want to cover tonight?
Just that we are working on, because it is a large project and there's so many different pieces to it, we want to make sure that we are, like getting all the right factors. And so we are taking a little bit more time in the front end to kind of build out timeline, look at the different factors and different needs. So, different people are working on different aspects, such as like the artist portion of it and then the business portion of it. So more updates coming next time.
We are meeting weekly right now.
And to clarify, for the purchase agreement, we can, as a subcommittee, answer the questions. Do we want to, are we okay to submit our answers to the city, or do you guys want to review our answers before we submit them to the city for legal feedback?
I'm totally fine with this subcommittee taking that and running with it. I think, I mean, I apologize for digging in on this thing about the encroachment thing, but I think that's just more of wrestling with city code rather than the purchase agreement itself. But, I think it's fine unless anyone else objects. For you to just take it and run with it. It's a purchase agreement, and I think if our city attorney is on board with it, then I think we're okay. I think with any of these things, you just have to be careful with the language, and what you read to me about obtaining permissions and permits and things like that, I think is high level enough that it keeps it safe for everybody.
It's funny because some of our high-level stuff that we were intentional about, they came back and they're like, well, what does this mean? It's like, exactly, high level.
So we have lawyers for
We'll get there, we'll
Yeah.
get there.
And I would suggest on my behalf too, is if you guys answer the questions, we can bring it back to the next meeting and review it as a group and then approve it.
Let's do that.
And move forward, if that works.
So action item to update the purchase agreement, we'll review it as a group at the next meeting. Sarah, then hopefully you could just send that out to everybody prior to the meeting so people have a chance to look at it.
Yep.
Because I'm hoping we don't have to go line by line through it unless absolutely necessary. You have an updated flyer, is that correct? The updated thing?
We have an
Not yet.
approved with edits.
Approved with edits, the
Yeah.
flyer. This is kind of like here's what, hey, come and buy a Snowy. Somebody's going to obtain current cost. And if you need information, Tivoli too, what was his name? Sorry, Hart Johnson. If you need contact information, let me know. And then you'll identify public locations. Also, if I could give you an action item, and this is for everybody here as well, if you look over here to the right, it's called Plan Steps. Really, these are like milestones along the way to, these would be major milestones that need to be completed in order for the project to be completed. They may or may not be these things that I have written in here, So what I would ask of you is if you could identify what are the major milestones towards completion, that will help us each month understand how far along we are. So right now, I would say that, you know, we're gonna rate these things and I'll have to add a key onto this thing. But when a step is complete, when a milestone is complete, we're gonna make it green. When a step is in progress, we're gonna make that yellow. And only if a step is behind schedule or there's some risk associated with that step, we'll make it red. Otherwise, we just won't color it in yet. So build buyer group, like what would you rate that one right now? Would you say we haven't started it, it's
No
in
color.
progress?
No color.
Really?
Like, really, well, we can't build our buyer group until we have the flyer approved
Yeah,
and
but
we
but
understand.
we're in progress, I'd say. I think we have at least, we have a few snowies identified already. So I think you can give yourself credit for that. It's in progress.
I don't think it's bad to say we're not in progress with it yet, though.
I don't think it's bad, but I think you are in progress. I think we are. I mean, I think we know. I mean, we have.
You would like to say something?
I don't really have anything to say. My comment is just that that's great that we have 3. I don't know who all those 3 are, so I feel, like even though I am with Stacy and and Amanda leading this group, I feel like there's still a lot of blind spots, including who the buyers
so you
are
can-
so far. So, yeah.
Okay, so you can call that one not started, and we won't rate it yet. Execute call for artists, haven't started that yet. Or, not, we did it once, but define artist selection, completion timeline. I don't know if that's a major milestone that you want to have on there. Define business association involvement. Write up the purchase agreement. I would say that's yellow. It's in progress. You're working on that.
I think the business association is yellow, for sure, because that's already been,
Yep.
that communication has been formally established.
That, to add to that, it was asked that when we have the final snowy flyer, there's a final presentation to the business association again.
I think that's a good idea, though. I think it's
Yes.
kind of get the whole thing rolling again.
Like, they want a presentation of the flyer,
Of the whole program, again, just a final, this is it.
and we really should not do that until the purchase agreement is
Right,
finalized.
and that's totally fine, yep.
Agreed.
And define timeline and program and everything else, yeah.
Right, so it's number 6 is define programming, like, what are we gonna do? So we're gonna get these things made and then just drop them off and that's that? Or are we gonna have some, go and find all the snowies kind of activities or put them in the parade on a flatbed truck or whatever's gonna happen? So is that okay? Ad hoc group,
Yes.
putting those milestones together? Okay, murals. Carey, do you want to take the lead on this one?
Yeah, I'm going to try my best, and Lisa's going to chime in when I forget something, right?
Right.
Okay, so far we have defined our scope. We're looking at 6 murals over 3 years. We're looking at a mix of public and private spaces. We have also put together a initial project plan detailing the situation, what we're trying to do, the importance of murals in our city, reviewed our 2040 comp plan for language that we can pull out to further articulate why it is that we want to do murals in North St. Paul. We also looked at some potential spaces for murals on our Pinterest board and on Google Maps. I think that's it. Anything else?
No, you covered it well.
Awesome. What did I miss, Tom?
Nothing that I can think of. Anybody have any questions?
I do. Lisa, you're right. I have a question. And this is based off of a drive that I took over to Minneapolis and also doing some research on some funding. I looked at what grants might be available, and I didn't find anything specific for specific projects, but more for art. So what if we open this for public art rather than 6 murals? What if we looked at 6 art projects within the city?
I'm open.
Possibility?
Yeah, for sure.
That could expand sculpture as well.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I saw American flags that were displayed as art with fabulous lighting, just a number of different things that were just really eye-catching, and it could be.
We'll have to discuss that at our next ad hoc meeting.
Sounds good. So on the funding, so I guess I do have to add to that. As I mentioned, I did just a little bit of research. I didn't find anything specific for specific projects, but more like community-based involvement. So if we got the community involved, there's something that I could probably apply for like, as soon as possible.
Well, I think it's great, Lisa, and I think we should talk about that at our next meeting, just like, do we want to expand this to just 6 pieces of public art? I think that's a good idea, because the murals, I think, we may struggle with locations or buy-in on all those, okay? Then we're going to have to get into that encroachment zoning code, probably.
Not if it's on a wall.
But if there's a sculpture, if we include some public art that's sitting out there on the sidewalk, then.
We'll be mindful.
What if the sidewalk is the public art?
We could do that too.
Okay, now you're rocking my world a little bit here, Amanda. I didn't know you were an abstract artist, is that?
The stamped poetry in St. Paul.
Oh, sure,
Like-
yeah, right,
Or like mosaics?
yeah.
Yeah, we used to do chalk art. Art on the street, they called it, back in the day.
Any other thoughts, questions about this one? Okay, utility boxes. See, how did you like, or I'm sorry, Emily, how did you like being voluntold that you were going to be involved in that one?
Very excited to be voluntold.
Great. I was telling C last time that this one's an easy home run. Well, not exactly. I mean, there's some work involved, but the path forward is pretty clear on this one. Did this ad hoc group have any chance to work on this at all? Any thoughts? Any updates?
C sent out an email to see when we could all meet, and I think, did we decide on Friday?
Yeah, so we are still having our kickoff meeting
Okay.
Friday, but the information has been passed out to the team here, and so folks will review and we'll kind of kick off on Friday and get that in gear for spring.
Fabulous. Okay, art cart. Who wants to take, Lisa, you want to take that
yeah.
one?
I've confirmed that Casey Lake will be open on March 23rd, which is a Thursday, so I'm proposing that we do it that night. Wrong one, sorry.
Oh.
No, we haven't started anything with the art cart,
Oh,
and
okay.
I don't think that we will until it gets closer to spring.
Okay. Paint and sip, Lisa, this is what you're talking about.
So yes, Casey Lake is available on March 23rd, and so Sara did put a tentative hold on there for us. Carey has volunteered to help with that. We could use a couple additional volunteers if you might be interested. Just looking for people to help if there's questions from people that are participating, or if they need more paint or anything that comes up. So, yeah, hope to see you all there.
One question I did want to pose that we didn't consider before when we were making purchases about tablecloths.
Oh, yeah.
Do we want to move forward with the purchase of some?
Yes, we can get the dollar store plastic tablecloths. Oh, and another note on that, we are going to eliminate the SIP from our verbiage in promoting this.
That's a good question. What are we going to call this thing?
Paint night,
Paint night.
paint night.
That works. Art in the park?
Art in the park. I like
That's
it.
cute.
So will there,
Lisa?
are we just removing,
Yes, we
are
can,
we just removing SIP from the name, or are we also removing SIP?
no, just from the
event?
name,
Okay.
just from the name.
You can
Yes.
party all you want to at the event.
We're just not gonna be able to provide it, so if
Okay.
somebody wants to bring their own, alcohol is allowed in our parks until 9 o'clock, so it won't be an issue.
Is that going to be part of the promotion, or is it just not going to be addressed?
I think it's safer if it's just not addressed, but we're not going to turn anybody away if they have it
Right.
with them.
So it's just, I think it's, well, maybe it might be just one of those things that it'll be through example or something like that, and people will behave as they choose.
Well, I'll be drinking wine as
There you
I'm
go.
demonstrating.
Yeah. So,
Could you refer to like the code on what is allowable in our parks as like a hyperlink on the communication? Like,
Not even that far. Can you simply just say, it's a paint night, bring your own beverage? Simple as that.
bring your own beverage. Rose.
Beverage,
Yep.
not,
Yeah, beverage is good.
not talking about what kind of beverage, just bring your own beverage.
Yep.
I wouldn't assume personally that alcohol was allowed in the parks, and I don't think I would even think to look. I would just assume it wasn't. So, I don't know. So maybe including that information would be.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would assume the same. Like, I think people are surprised to find that alcohol is allowed at the parks. And we really want to encourage alcoholic use as much as possible in the city of North Salem. No, I mean, I think it's just, I mean, in the spirit of the thing, I think it's just this idea that, you know, you can relax and have a glass of wine and paint while you're painting.
He has a question.
But it's just, there's just the risk of making it too blatant as part of our thing.
I'll leave it up to our communications expert, Carey.
One question, did you guys decide on the age allowance at the event?
We didn't. There was some talk about it being an adult paint night.
Like 21 and up, or like 18, 16?
What is your thought on that?
I would like to ask our student representative about that. Like how, Cece, what would you think if there's a paint night where people can come and it's led by an artist who will help you practice and you get to make your own painting and take it home with you? Do you think high school students would be interested in that?
I would say like just not little kids, but
Right.
high school.
15 and up?
16, 17, 18?
Bring all your friends, I was gonna say, when I've seen programming where there's ages on it, it's 12 and up. I don't have an issue, and then some of my most fun painting classes were with little kids, but that's just me. I love kids. So, I don't know.
I think you have, I think, you know, I think it's whatever you want it to be, but I think that it's going to be different if you say it's 12 and up than if
As
you say it's
opposed
16 up
16 and
or
up.
18 and up or something like that.
The
It's,
beverages people bring will be
You know
different.
what?
that's right.
Let's do our first one. We'll play it by ear. We'll do the first one, 16 and up.
okay.
And then if we get inquiries, if someone has younger children, maybe we could do something more oriented towards a kids' paint night.
Well, you know what? I think we do programming for children.
We do.
We have the art card.
Yeah,
And I think there's something to be said for saying, hey, and we're also do some programming for adults. You know, because, I mean, that's what the Fall Frolic was all about. It was like, hey, we do all these things for kids and everything. Why can't we have something that's broader for families and adults and
Yes.
everything? But I think, you know, with this, I think it's perfectly fine to say we want to have this thing be an adults event or whatever. I mean, I'm okay personally with whatever you decide, but I don't think it has to be all-inclusive age-wise.
okay.
Do we have a cost in mind and number of participants in mind as well?
Yes, I want to say the participants should be limited to 25
Okay.
to start. And then the cost will probably be $30 or $35. What is your thought on that? Has anyone ever participated in a paint night before?
When I've participated, they gave me drinks.
Right.
So the cost was different because I think that was built in.
Was it
to
$40?
the cost. Maybe around there, like 35 to 40.
Okay, so we'll go with 30.
30, okay.
And that's another thing that I think that might help dictate what the age is.
You're right, yeah. You're not gonna buy tickets for your entire family if.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
The 25 people max is what you're thinking? And so does Lisa need to get something then to Carey to advertise? How is this going to be advertised?
That's, yeah, kind of up to you how you want to do that. I can work with Carey on getting the registration set up.
Okay.
Sure.
Be a problem at all, but yeah, if you have flyers already made or social media or whatever, yeah, you can work with Carey and
Okay.
getting that out there.
We'll do that. One thing that would be really helpful, and not only for this event, but if we had a microphone, a cordless microphone that I could use.
Okay.
Going back to Emily's comment about alcohol in our parks, the summer of '21 was the first time we went to a music in the park. And I looked around and saw people drinking alcohol, and I was like, what is happening? Because I assumed that alcohol, in a lot of metro area parks, alcohol is not allowed, and it's explicit. And then walking the dog, they have signs up in the park that says alcohol's allowed, and hot diggity, we packed a cooler.
That's also a
after that.
discussion that's going to be coming too, because in the city ordinance, it actually says you can't, but we have signs that say you can.
Oh.
So it's a little tricky. So we're allowing it for now until anything else.
So are you saying we need to come rally to support alcohol in our parks at like city council
Yes.
meetings? Like,
Bring your own bottle. to city
Some random
council.
person just put up their own signs because they want.
And isn't there like something against like public intoxication?
Well, sure.
Like,
I mean, there's those laws too. My daughter just went to do study abroad in Italy. She just left on Monday, and I'm falling apart on the inside. But she said, "Do you know it's illegal? You can't be drunk in public in Italy." I'm like, "Can't be drunk in public here." You know, people do it all the time, but legally, you know, they could haul you in. Anyway, yeah, so regular, all other laws still apply. Okay, so on this one then, so Lisa and Carey, then you're gonna work on getting messaging over to Sara so she can get it to Carey, so it can get on the website, and then you're gonna get the sign up and all that stuff. And we're locked in for March 23rd at Casey Park. Yeah?
And what time was that at again?
6:30, is that too early for you?
6:30?
Okay, 6:30.
6:30, perfect.
Fabulous. Hey, we're gonna have a spring event. I like it. Be the first event of the year, right? Great. Arts Festival with Parks and Rec. Amanda, do you want to talk about this one?
We're working on it.
We're working on it.
Tom and I met, and we are going to meet with Sara from the Parks Commission. Need to get with Tom to talk about dates for that, since he's the only one not responding.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
They have September 23rd reserved. I am looking into using a different platform for our artist applications. What I typically see is using a website called Zapplication. And I did look into the fees on that. For our cost, it would be $500 to join the website, and I believe $1,000 to accept applications.
Woo.
That could be lumped into our artist fees and whatnot. I'm not sure what we want to do there. That's a further discussion. I have a lot of other things to bring to our subcommittee. One thing I did want to discuss and ask about is, Tom, we were thinking about different locations. What is the status of the McKnight Fields area? Is that a parks area? Is that Lisa's sighing?
I mean, we take care of a lot of it, but, I mean, the high school uses it a bunch, so.
who owns the land is the question, and isn't it school district land?
No, it is city
Not-
property.
Okay.
Yeah, and the city maintains it.
We did utilize the Casey Lake Pavilion last year, and there was quite a bit in there, and I know McKnight wouldn't have something like that, if that matters. Thinking there's fall ball leagues.
Yep.
At McKnight. You'd have to check the calendar. Well, you wouldn't know what the schedule is for that yet. And just depending on priority, I mean, you could say that wouldn't be available.
Right.
Housie Park is that where they had the food truck thing?
Yeah.
That's a great setup for a, like, tent type.
That may not be available this year.
They're doing
Construction.
construction there. We were talking a lot about parking availability with Casey Lake and how that doesn't have a ton of access, and we can park down the street, but there's a lot of walking. And I thought with McKnight Field, there was plenty of parking nearby.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. It's an interesting thought. So we can look into that more. And I think when we meet with Sara, see what they think, how far they want to go.
Can I ask the reason for looking at a different platform for registration?
I know that I use it actually as like a search engine to search for festivals that are happening. So that's one draw, is getting people around there.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd have to work through that with Carey too. I know
Yes.
she's pretty adamant that everybody goes through our system we currently have.
Okay.
I know that when we were doing the student commissioner, I know we were gonna do that via like some sort of form online, and she said, we can't do that, we gotta do it through OpenGov, so it might not be an option, but certainly something we can run past.
Understandable.
Yep.
Yeah, and that would have to be, Amanda, you had talked about being able to search, and, artists would be able to search and find it that way. But I wonder, for us to make up that 1,500 for the cost to even use it, if we were gonna be allowed to use it, I don't know about the OpenGov thing, but it seems like there's a lot to make up to get that. And, it seemed like very little effort. Last year, we got however many, 25 people.
And that was almost last minute. It was very short notice for, and I know you had a really big emailing list that would be, if we started early enough on it, the potential would be, we could get a lot more artists.
I would like to get applications out within the next 2 months.
That
at the
sounds
latest.
great. Yeah.
And, yeah. I do actually already have a few artists who are interested.
Good. Good for you.
Yeah, Amanda does this, so
I
she's,
know. I went to Rosedale and I bought
she's
one of your
opening my eyes
stickers
on a
for
lot of
my
this
mug.
stuff about,
I love your work.
Thank
It's
you.
very cool.
So very, very early stages on this.
Yes.
We're getting a really early jump on it this compared to last year, but which is great. So I think it'll help it be more
Are
successful.
there any plans to connect with the artists that did participate in 2022?
I definitely
Also?
would, yes.
Like, to keep them,
Yeah, sure. And I know several of them had reached out and said that they thought it went very well for them and wanted to, be involved if we did it again. So
Sarah, I think you could just get that list from Carey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
okay. So what do you think about this project update checklist going through this that way? That work okay for everybody?
Yeah.
So just to think about, and obviously there are going to be some months where you don't have a whole lot of updates, and that's okay. It's okay. I mean, whatever you're doing, whatever you can get done in between meetings is whatever you can get done. And we just want to feel like we're making progress. And then I think, next time too, I mean, I didn't want to try and rush this too much, but we also had Soren here for about 45 minutes or something like that. Next time we'll have more time where we can dig into discussion around the projects as needed. So, but I think this is good. I mean, there was obviously a lot of work happened in between the meetings this time. Do you have something you want to say, Amanda?
Well, now that we have Cece here, do we want to ask her which subcommittee she would like to
That's a great
be a part of?
question. Yeah, so can we have our school rep be part of a subgroup?
Yep.
Great. What do you think about all this, Cece?
I like them all.
Do you have any questions?
Any of the projects seem really interesting to you?
I don't know if she knows what all of the projects are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like we've got Project Snowy, which is a snowman sculpture, the art festival, art cart, which is like the kid cart. I don't know if you saw it last summer at all. Yeah, no, that's okay.
Oh, yeah. We connected, yeah.
And then there's paint night. And then the wrap project, which is like the utility boxes, we're gonna wrap them with some sort of art around the city. Like Minneapolis has them, you might see them around town. Did I miss anything?
The murals.
Oh, the mural, the art project now, the public art thing,
Yeah, public art.
public art stuff.
If you want to think about it, you can let us know next time.
And I could see that there are several ways as these get more developed, where we'll say to you, Cece, we need your help spreading the word at school or something like that, or hey, would you want to come and volunteer at the art cart for this thing or something like that. So we'll make sure we get you involved as we go. We're gonna put you to work.
And this is super formal, right? Like this table is. We would prefer not to be speaking for myself, I would prefer to be in like a small conference room. But if you hear anything and you're like, oh, my friends would cringe at that, please let us know. Because we want to be representative of everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, my son is a junior at North, and he lets me know what things are cringy.
Tom's up on all the slang.
Yes, tea. We're spilling the tea about what's cringy.
I think it's so cringe.
Cringe.
Yes.
Oh, cringe.
I think it's mid now. Isn't that the new one? So mid.
Mid.
What's mid? I don't know. Apparently I say it wrong, so.
Mid. So mid.
Like basic.
Middle of the road.
Mid.
Okay, got it.
I'm down with that one. That
This
works.
is great information. Thank you, Cece. Thank you. I'm gonna like write it down.
Cece, you slay.
For the notes.
Cece's not gonna come back.
Thanks for kicking it with us, Cece.
You are slaying. Slay.
Yeah.
That's another word
You
I
can
hear.
take it.
Slay.
Red button, Lisa. Red button.
That keeps this one.
That was low key cringe.
All right, so we got a couple other things here. So Sarah, you have this one on Public Art Code, Minnesota Statute. Do you want to lead us through that?
Yeah, so from our conversation last time, we talked about seeing what is in the Minnesota statutes for public art. I have included it in the packet. I don't know that we need to make any decisions today on that, so if you want to take it and review it, that'd be great, and then we can kind of discuss maybe next time if we want to continue with what the Minnesota statute offers, or if we want to begin the process of writing our own city code for public art. We can wait and review it in a year from now and see with the Snowy project if it's going to require us to start to write any city code. But I would just say, for now, let's just review it and come back next month.
Oh, is this because we had the Pittsburgh and that other example? and
Yes.
We were like, these are kind of weird, so then we wanted to see what the state had.
Yes.
Okay, I
So
couldn't
this is what it has, yes.
I also don't like this one. It's weird. I'm sorry.
All code is kind of weird.
No, but it's like
Right.
one from each list of 3 persons. I mean, sorry, go ahead,
Because
Tom.
this was like what we were going to write into our own code or not write into it about, right?
Right.
Yeah. And, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes the less we say, the better.
Wasn't it just going to be that we weren't going to have one, but we would follow the state statute? Yeah, we have to follow the state. Yeah.
But local or city government can make it a little bit more stringent or a little bit more restrictive. And so if we do put an ordinance, I mean, we can even narrow what's down here if that's the decision, but that's how it's gonna work.
Yep.
Which it doesn't sound like this group wants that.
Totally fine, yeah, totally fine.
So What do we want to do?
Review it and discuss later.
Talk about it next time? Table it? Okay. So then we have one more item, I believe.
Yes, at the very end of last meeting, we talked about potentially changing the meeting date for March.
Thank you. Sara.
So kind of discussion on that, if we still want to do that or keep it
Yeah.
on the first.
So,
Is the room available the next Wednesday?
Yes.
Just for March?
just for March.
Okay.
I will be out of the state on March 1st and unavailable. So you could keep the meeting and go on without me, or we could reschedule it. And I'm totally fine either way.
I'm available on the 8th.
Same.
Move to March 8th?
Do we need to make a motion? Or are we good?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, just to be
Make a
safe, we'll
motion that
make a
we move
motion.
the March meeting from March 1st to March 8th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Who said that? Emily? Okay, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We're going to move our March meeting to Wednesday, March 8th at 6:30 PM. And that covers us. So old business, well, guess what? We just did all that. Reports from staff. Sara, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, just a couple things. Last meeting, I know we talked about creating the list of cultural groups within North St. Paul. I have started that list, but I'd like to ask if you guys have any suggestions for that list, to send them to me. I'll add it to it
Okay.
and bring it to the next meeting as well, so we can take a look. And then just the other thing, as some of you may have heard or may not have heard, the Park and Rec Commission is considering and probably will be moving from 9 to 7 members. So there'll be less contact there as well. But I think that's going to be a good change for them.
Good.
That's all I have.
Yeah, I just saw on the what do they call the newsletter? The 3 people that left. Yeah. And a lot of experience that left. That's too bad.
Yeah.
Okay, reports from commissioners. Lisa, Ritchie, I'll start with you.
I do not have anything.
Nothing? Carey?
I'm just really grateful to this group for inviting Cece to be here. I think that's very exciting. And
Very
thanks.
happy to have you.
Yes.
Thanks for being here, Cece.
Awesome.
Stacy?
I am more grateful. No, I'm just kidding. No, I have nothing to report.
C?
Nothing, thank you.
Amanda?
I don't have anything.
And Emily?
Nothing.
Okay, I don't have anything else myself, so reports from Council Liaison. Lisa?
So just mostly about the sidewalk ordinance, and so I'll just add a couple other points of discussion. We did talk about this in a workshop. So all the edits and feedback that we've given to the new Community Development Director, Brandy, she'll be incorporating that for our next meeting. So I haven't seen it, but some of the discussion around that was the desire for some consistency in the design and the aesthetics of some of the seating. So we have some standards around, high quality grade plastic or metals, commercial grade, stuff like that. There was a discussion about what commercial grade was, but overall there was a desire for some similarities in the design and aesthetics, but I think but avoiding perhaps, exactly the same for different reasons. There will be that permit process. There was discussion around smoking versus non-smoking. So I'm not sure where Brandy landed on that discussion, but that there was some discussion around that for sure. The time frame in which the ordinance would allow would be between, I think, May and November. I think they're still deciding till when in November. And then any business, if they have alcohol, say the bar has something, then they can permit it through the liquor license, so it's not actually through the ordinance. So that would be allowed. What we're discussing is, would it need to have a special demarcation where people know that's okay to have liquor? That's pretty much our discussion. Are there any questions about that, or, okay? We've talked a lot.
I'm just curious, as far as the design looking similar, is there a committee that's going to come up with it, or how's that going to be handled?
I don't know yet.
I know that they've talked about it, I think in planning or EDA, to kind of establish that, but I don't know moving forward.
There are a couple council, I think Council Member Cole and City Manager Frandl have been also meeting with some of the bar owners and business owners to kind of get a good idea of what is maybe compatible with their sites or what makes sense. So,
That's good, that they're involving the.
definitely.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thanks.
If that's it, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Stacy,
I second.
second by C. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The meeting is adjourned at 8:28.